Ever read the Bible and felt like you're reading about two different gods? One is loving and forgiving, the other a wrathful force of judgment and destruction. Today, we're diving into one of the most controversial and often overlooked mysteries in religious history, the duality of God in the Bible. On one side, you have Yahweh, the powerful God of the Old Testament, a God who commands wars, brings plagues, and shows little mercy. Then, in the New Testament, Jesus preaches a message of forgiveness and love. For thousands of years, people have been taught that Yahweh, the God of the Old Testament, is the same God of love that Jesus preached. But what if that's not the whole truth? Here's a simple question. If God is love and forgiveness, then why do we see so much violence, judgment, and punishment in the Old Testament? You read about cities destroyed, nations conquered, and plagues sent as punishment. But then in the New Testament, Jesus teaches us to turn the other cheek and love our enemies. How do we make sense of this? The problem is that these two portrayals of God seem totally at odds. People have debated this for centuries. But here's something most people don't know. Ancient texts outside the Bible offer an explanation that's rarely discussed. They suggest that the God of judgment and wrath, known as Yahweh, might not be the same as the God of love in the New Testament. It's a theory that could change how we see the Bible. In the Old Testament, Yahweh is a force to be reckoned with. He's the creator of the world, the protector of Israel, but he's also a God of strict laws, fear, and control. This is the God who sends floods, commands battles, and punishes disobedience with plagues and destruction. But early religious groups like the Gnostics had a different perspective on Yahweh. They believed Yahweh wasn't the true God at all, but a flawed being. They called him the demiurge, a lower god who believed he was the only God. According to the Gnostics, this demiurge kept humanity trapped in a world of ignorance and fear, while the true God, a God of light and wisdom, remained hidden. They thought there was a higher God, a true God, far beyond Yahweh's reach. This God was hidden, unknowable, and completely different from the harsh, demanding Yahweh. The Gnostics believed humanity's mission wasn't to worship Yahweh out of fear, but to seek out the true God, a God of love, knowledge, and freedom. If this theory existed, why don't we hear about it? Let's go back to 325 AD, when Christianity was growing but still divided. Different groups held different beliefs about Jesus, God, and the Bible. Then, the Roman Emperor Constantine saw an opportunity to unite his empire under a single version of Christianity. Constantine gathered church leaders at the Council of Nicaea. Constantine wanted a Christianity that would serve the empire, so he needed to eliminate debates and establish one unified faith. That meant deciding which books would make it into the Bible and which would be left out. Alternative texts, like the Gnostic Gospels, were labeled heretical. Books like the Gospel of Thomas, which encourages personal spiritual awakening, or the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which shows Mary as one of Jesus's closest disciples, were left out because they didn't fit the official version Constantine wanted. If the God that billions have worshipped for thousands of years is actually a merging of two distinct beings, this completely changes how we view the Bible. It's possibly a blend of two different beings, each with a different role and agenda, and this idea doesn't stop at the Bible. Other myths and stories align with this duality. Take the myths of ancient Greece, where gods like Zeus represented power and authority, while other deities symbolized wisdom, love, or war. Or look at Hinduism, where gods like Vishnu represent preservation, and Shiva represents destruction and transformation. These stories highlight different aspects of the divine, often in conflict or balance with each other. This pattern across cultures raises a question. Take Lucifer's story, for example. Traditionally, he's the ultimate villain, the fallen angel who defied God. But Lucifer actually means light bringer. Some interpretations suggest that Lucifer represents enlightenment, the desire for knowledge and freedom. In some Gnostic texts, Lucifer wasn't seen as evil, but as a liberator, someone trying to help humanity see beyond the limitations set by Yahweh. Rebellion against a wrathful, controlling God doesn't seem evil. It seems like a call to discover truth and freedom. It seems the traditional image of God, a single all-powerful ruler who expects obedience, might not be the whole story. The idea that God could be multifaceted, beyond simple human definitions, invites us to think differently about divinity itself. For the Gnostics, spirituality wasn't about strict obedience, it was a journey for personal discovery and truth. They believed each person has a spark of the true God within a divine connection Yahweh couldn't control. This inner spark was a link to the higher God, a piece of divinity that connected every person to the greater universe. Understanding God meant exploring one's own mind and spirit, finding wisdom within rather than following rules imposed from outside. Many ancient cultures saw divinity as something within all things. They didn't see God as a separate force watching from afar, but as a presence interwoven through all of existence. This belief that God was present within everything created a sense of unity and connectedness, encouraging people to see the divine everywhere rather than looking for it in one place or one form. If the story of God has been shaped to fit human agendas, how much of what we know is truly divine and how much is about human control? Think critically about the narratives we've been given and to wonder how much of what we accept as divine truth has been molded by human hands. For centuries, people were silenced for asking these questions. But today, those lost voices are finally being heard again. In the 1940s, the discovery of the Nag Hammadi texts and the Dead Sea Scrolls brought back these ancient beliefs, showing us that spirituality doesn't have to follow one narrow path. These texts open the door to a broader, richer exploration of divinity that invites us to consider perspectives that were once hidden or forbidden. Maybe the real path to understanding God isn't about following a single doctrine. It's about seeking out hidden truths and finding a connection with the divine that resonates personally. As we revisit these ancient texts and ideas, we find that many of the themes resonate with modern spiritual movements that emphasize individual experience, mindfulness, and a direct connection with a higher power. Just as the Gnostics valued personal understanding over enforced doctrines, many people today are exploring spirituality outside traditional religious structures, finding meaning through meditation, personal reflection, and a sense of interconnectedness with the universe. These modern approaches mirror the ancient belief in an inner spark of the divine, encouraging people to see themselves as part of something greater. By reconnecting with these age-old perspectives, we are reminded that the search for God doesn't have to follow one narrow road, but can be a deeply personal, expansive, and transformative journey that honors the mystery and vastness of the divine. If you're ready to keep exploring these mysteries, make sure to check out our next video.